Okay, thank you for joining us. It is my great pleasure tonight to interview an author whose two books I have loved very much indeed, for reasons which are about to become apparent. Please welcome Kevin Geddes. Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Yeah, I'm great. Nice to see you.
And you. Now, it's a great honour for me to be able to have a chat with you because you have written about one of my culinary icons. This beautiful, fabulous book, which people really need a read of, is just wonderful. Keep Calm and Fanny On, The Many Careers of Fanny Cradock. Just as a quick starter for 10, for those people that maybe haven't heard of Fanny Cradock, who are these people? But for those that haven't heard, give us a quick rundown. What is Fanny Cradock? Who is she?
Well, she was the most wonderful creature, but most people remember her, I guess, as one of the very first celebrity chefs on TV. She wasn't a chef, but she certainly was a celebrity. And if you've ever seen her, you'll find her hard to forget. So that's where most people remember her from. But she was so much more than that. And I guess that's what the book's about. It's about her whole life and her many different careers. She loved being a celebrity most of all those. So that celebrity chef tag, almost right.
Is that where you think that whole kind of cult of celebrity chef started? Do you think she was the first?
Well, she wasn't the first person to cook on TV, certainly not. But I think she was, if she wasn't the first, she was definitely among the first to realise the power of celebrity and the job, if you like, of being on TV. So she did her TV shows. She as well invited celebrity magazines to come to her glamorous home and take pictures of her and her husband Johnny lounging around at home. She loved being on chat shows and game shows and, you know, all the kind of paraphernalia that we tend to think goes with being a celebrity now. She's doing it back in the 50s, 60s, 70s.
Very much so. What I have to ask, actually, Kevin, for you, is it fair to say it's a Fanny obsession? I mean, when did that begin for you? Because I know you have a lovely Twitter account, which is certainly when you first came to my attention.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say obsession. And I think that obsession has deepened over the years, really. So I've always been aware of Fanny Cradock. I guess, I grew up in the 70s, so I remember some things about her. I can't really say that I definitely remember watching her cook on TV, but I remember her being around. I probably remember her being on those game shows and chat shows rather than anything else. But I've always just been fascinated with her. But it really was when she died, which was just over 25 years ago. I guess she came back to prominence, and I thought, wow, she's fabulous. And people were pretty down on her, I guess. You know, people laughed at her. She was the joke, really. And I couldn't really work out, if she'd been so famous and so fantastic, why were people laughing? So I wanted to find out more, and I wanted to find out really what she was like. So probably over the past 5 or 6 years since I've been doing my blog and being on Twitter, I found out more and more about her, and definitely the obsession has ramped right up. She not only has taken over my life, but probably taken over everything within my life too. So yeah, I'm obsessed.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think there's a temptation that people have with Fanny to think of her as quite an arch kind of camp icon, and that's certainly part of it. And that, I think, is what draws people in. What I found with the book is actually that is only one facet. I mean, even within the foreword by Nicholas Parsons, it touches on so many different aspects of who she was, and she is, I think, far more than just this kind of, like I say, arch camp icon that people have come to love.
Absolutely, and people tend to just remember her from her later days. So probably from the Christmas cooking shows in the 70s. They're the ones that are repeated time and time again. And
Mm.
if there's any clip shows on TV, then it's clips of that kind of stuff that they show, simply because a lot of her earlier stuff from 20 years before that just didn't survive really. So it's, you can't really see it. But if you delve deep into the archives, you can get some glimpses of some of that. But, she was really quite glamorous in her day. And back in the 50s, she did a kind of double page spread in Vogue magazine and things that you wouldn't think about, I guess, with that camp character that she became and that she was. I mean, she always had a camp side to her character, definitely. But she really developed that persona, I guess, as her career went on, because that's what people wanted to see. They expected that of her.
So do you think that was a career decision then, to create and, like you say, develop this character based on what she perhaps perceived people were enjoying?
Yeah, I think so. I spoke to a lot of people who knew her for the book and worked with her, and they said even back in the 50s and 60s, they found that she had a kind of surreal quality about her, and they never really got to know her because she always projected this image of Fanny Cradock, even back then when she was starting out. So I think, and it's hard to tell, I never met her, but I think that she did develop that character and really became that character and kind of switched it on when it was required, whether that was on TV or for a magazine interview, or just in general for her life, really. And I think probably towards the end, she found it really difficult to separate the two. So it started off, I think, as a persona, but just became who she was.
I see. No, that makes sense, because it's easy to forget, and a lot of people do forget. They think that perhaps the career started, the moment she was on TV. But of course, she was writing the Bon Viveur books a long time before that, and all of that kind of stuff with a very good. However, we might joke about, green piped mash and all of these kinds of things. Actually, she had a very good grounding, didn't she, in culinary arts?
Yeah, absolutely. She wasn't trained as a chef, and she never claimed to be. She said that she was a home cook, much in the same way that I guess someone like Nigella Lawson says now, I'm not a chef, I just cook at home. She taught herself. She pretended that she'd been taught by great chefs in France, but really she taught herself. And she just had a bit of a knack for it. She had a knack for the way things looked as well, and I guess that became her trademark. So adding that green coloured dye to her mashed potatoes, it's just something she thought of that would be fun, and it's kind of very memorable, and that's what people remember her for today. So she oomphed that up a lot in her career and made it even bigger and bolder and greener, if you like.
Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it. And of course, the other thing that a lot of people remember her for is banana candles.
Yeah, you can't really forget the banana candles. I made those banana candles once on my blog, and the picture just circles round the internet all the time. And people always say to me, "Have you seen this photo?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I took it."
I have seen the photo. I haven't given the banana candles a go myself. I will have to try at some point. Maybe that's a lockdown activity for me.
Yeah, I mean, she recommended that kids made them to surprise their parents. So I bet the parents were surprised when those banana candles appeared on the table. But
I imagine they would be. I
think it sums her up, really. She knew it was a visual gag, and she knew it was funny. But if you didn't get the gag, you still find it quite entertaining.
Yeah.
I think that's her.
Absolutely right. You mentioned the perennial favourite, the Christmas programmes, Christmas cooking with Fanny Cradock. Now, it's become even more so a staple of people's Christmas television since it's been permanently placed on the iPlayer. And I know people who, yes, I know, and I know people, including my own family, who will watch it every year. To that end, I know you produced this additional little booklet here, which is just a lovely thing, full of I mean, full of glorious photography and lovely, witty little, I mean, look, lovely, witty little write-ups that you've given it. Was it something that was kind of burrowing away at you, that you wanted to create this book as a companion piece to the other?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the biography's, serious. I take a light-hearted look at her life and her career, but there's a lot of research that went into that. The Christmas book is simply fun. It's just intended to be fun and for people to cook along with the Christmas stuff, have a Fanny Cradock party. Why not? And kind of enjoy and celebrate some of the weird and wonderful nature of her cooking. Really fortunate to be able to include all the original photos from the 70s in that book as well.
Absolutely. Tell me how that came about, because I think that's wonderful.
Well, I was just in touch with the photographer. He's still around, and he was just really happy to have those photos used and celebrated. It was a kind of funny time in his life. He spent 2 years with Fanny Cradock, just photographing her food and being traumatized by those green mashed potatoes. But he kind of just wanted the photos to be put to good use and bring a smile to people's face. So it was perfect.
How wonderful. Yeah, I mean, that's what really enhances what you've written so much by including those photographs. I mean, it really is. It's a lovely companion piece. I would recommend anyone who has not got either of these books to grab them. Certainly, yes, one might say, oh, yeah, he would say that. Trust me, you will not regret it. They are absolutely lovely. There is a question that I was thinking about, and I was thinking about it in relation to people that I idolize and that I would love to have met and never had the opportunity. If you had the opportunity to meet Fanny, what one question would you like to put to her? What thing is bothering you that you would ask her?
Oh gosh, that's a really difficult question. And one, I guess that people often ask what I would do, or would I like to meet Fanny Cradock? Would I like to cook for her? Would I like to go out for a drink with her or something? I think the answer is yes, I definitely would. I was really pleased. One of her assistants told me that after I interviewed her, that she thought Fanny would really like me, which was really great.
Oh, wow, that is lovely.
Yeah, I think that's nice. I think I'd like to ask her really well, I mean, it's not really a question, but I would just love to know what the real Fanny Cradock's like. So I think that I would ask her a whole series of questions to try and get a little bit under her skin. So I think any question that you asked her, she would give a very polished answer and response. So I'd be looking for the clues underneath what she said, really. Sounds like a bit of a cop-out answer, but
no, I don't think so. I don't think so, because I think it reflects the person that you've shown us in the book, and the person that you've talked about in this interview, who was able to portray herself the way she wanted to be portrayed. In many ways, that's a trait that a lot of us could probably make very good use of, and it seems that she perfected that. I mean, the thing I have heard a lot said about Fanny is that actually, despite the hectoring on TV, that relationship between her and Johnny was nothing like what we saw on television. Did you find that to be the case?
Yeah, that's certainly what people told me, and I've spoken to, as I say, quite a few people who knew her and worked with her, and were friends with her for 50 years, who are thankfully still around and able to tell me those stories, and they all said exactly that on screen Fanny and Johnny were one thing, but at home it was entirely different. And I also spent some time in her own archive as part of the research. And so I was reading letters between her and Johnny, and they're very tender and, loving letters and loving notes. And, it's not really always the story that people want to hear. They want to hear about Fanny being a domineering witch, if you like, and Johnny cowering in the corner. But I don't think it was always like that. Definitely not.
And I think part of that idea that she was a monster is very much born from that moment. with Gwen Troke, of course, on television, where she is quite openly criticizing the banquet that's being laid on by an amateur chef. What's your take on that whole scenario? It's often said that it finished her career.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a very, very different take on it, and I guess without giving too much away, if people do want to read the book, the whole story's in there. There's a whole chapter really devoted to that. I think that basically Fanny knew exactly what she was doing. She was really savvy and really smart when it came to TV and media and publicity. So I think that she had much more of a hand in designing that episode and the kind of publicity that came from it afterwards than many people think. But also, a lot of engineering went on behind the scenes. So I spoke to Dame Esther Ranson as part of the research, and she's got a lightning sharp memory, and she was able to recall an amazing amount of detail. And I think that she told me the true story.
Okay.
Which, as I say, is in the book. So
yes, it is. It is, and in fact, it needs to be read rather than. I mean, we could be here and chat about it, but actually, it needs to be read so that you can take it on board and just see kind of the story behind that whole incident. And it's more fascinating, I think, than most people possibly would realise. But that's what I found, is that is Fanny from start to end. Is that actually there always seems to be another layer and another layer and another layer. Do you feel you got to know who Fanny was by the time you'd finished writing the book?
Oh, I think so. I think that I've certainly got more of an idea of what she was like, and what drove her, and what I guess made her build up those layers and hide behind those layers, if you like, over the years. I definitely think so. Whether anybody ever got to know the real Fanny Cradock, I'm not sure. So hopefully in the book I've portrayed a different side to her, but also a familiar side to her, but also kind of left it a bit open, I hope, for readers to make up their own mind. She's a very divisive character. Some people love her, some people hate her. And I'm sure at the end of the book, some people will still have those divided opinions. But for me, I loved her more and more the more research that I did. And actually, I'm obviously still finding out more about her and, the book. In some ways as a start. So after the book was published, of course, people come forward and say, "Oh, I've never told you about this story about the time that I met Fanny Cradock." But that's nice too. I love to hear those stories.
There we are. So if anyone has any other Fanny Cradock stories, please get in touch and let us know. Kevin would love to hear them. Do you want to just give a shout out to both your blog and your Twitter account? How can people find you?
Well, I've tried to make it as easy as possible, really. So the blog and Twitter and the book all kind of share the common name, Keep Calm and Fanny On, which I think really sums up really what she was like. That really sums up her career. She just moved from one thing to the next, kept calm, and just continued being Fanny right up until the end.
That's absolutely wonderful. I can't recommend the books heartily enough myself. So I would suggest I'm going to bring this interview to an end so that people can get straight online, order themselves a copy of a book and get reading. She is a fascinating character. It's been absolutely lovely chatting with you, Kevin, and I hope that we can chat again another time, because there's a lot more I want to ask. In the meantime, you take care. Thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Kevin Geddes. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.